Imagine giving your entire life, every dollar, every ounce of love, only to hear your own daughter look you in the eyes on her wedding day and say, "Dad, you're not invited. Go away." That's not a nightmare, it happened to me. David Miller, and what followed was not just a wedding disaster, it became the ultimate family betrayal story. Viewers call this a father versus daughter revenge story, but to me it was never revenge. It was justice. I had walked into that ballroom with nothing but pride in my heart and a small gift box in my hand. White roses imported from Ecuador filled the air with their heavy fragrance. A crystal chandelier spilled rainbow light across the marble floor, each flicker reflecting the kind of wealth most construction workers like me would never touch in a lifetime. And yet I was the one who paid for it all, every flower, every plate, every single sparkling light. My boots polished as best I could, tapped against a floor that had cost me 3 months of company profit to rent. But in that room, I was treated as if I didn't belong. When Sophia, my only daughter, looked at me in her $12 gown and whispered that I wasn't welcome, it felt like 28 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, private school tuition, and late nights at job sites collapsed into ash. Guests in designer suits and gowns turned their heads pretending not to listen while their eyes burned with curiosity. Christopher Reynolds, my new son-in-law, stood smugly at her side, his tuxedo sharp, his smile sharper, delivering the final cut. "Mr. Miller, there's been a misunderstanding. This is immediate family only. Immediate family only." The words echoed in my head like a gavel slamming down. I was the man who had raised her alone since her mother died, the man who wrote the checks that built this very day, and yet I was dismissed like an uninvited stranger. That single moment crystallized the cruel truth: I was not a father in their eyes. I was an ATM with calloused hands. Outside, spring air felt colder than it should. Luxury cars lined the parking lot like silent judges, each one a reminder of the world Sophia wanted to belong to. My pickup truck sat at the edge, out of place, but honest just like me. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. This wasn't about revenge. This was about showing my daughter and everyone who doubted me the true cost of betrayal. What unfolded in the next 2 hours would turn a perfect wedding into a viral justice story people still whisper about in Spokane. Because when you betray the man who sacrificed everything, you don't just lose a father. You lose the foundation beneath your entire world. The words were so soft I almost thought I imagined them, but the sting was sharper than any shout. "Dad, you weren't invited. Go away." My daughter Sophia's voice, the same voice that once begged me to read her just one more bedtime story, cut through the elegant chatter of 100 wedding guests. Her green eyes, her mother's eyes, were colder than stone, and for the first time in 28 years, they looked right through me as if I were no one. Around us, crystal champagne flutes trembled in manicured hands. Guests in designer suits whispered behind polite smiles, pretending civility, while savoring every second of the unfolding family betrayal. Christopher Reynolds appeared beside her like a shadow made flesh. His tuxedo was flawless, tailored to perfection, his cufflinks gleaming like weapons. He placed a possessive hand on Sophia's shoulder and looked at me with a smile that could slice steel. "Mr. Miller, there's been a misunderstanding. This is immediate family only." His words were dipped in venomous politeness, a performance for the wealthy crowd that circled us like vultures. Immediate family only. My chest tightened. I was the man who raised Sophia since her mother Sarah died when Sophia was 3 years old. I was the one who cooked her breakfast, who packed her school lunches, who worked overtime on construction sites so she could attend private schools where tuition rivaled mortgages. I was the one who built this very wedding from sweat and sacrifice. But in that ballroom, I was not family. I was an intruder. Sophia glanced around nervously, clearly aware of the eyes upon her. The wives of Christopher's father's colleagues sipped champagne with thin smiles, their eyes darting between me and the spectacle unfolding. Men with slick-back hair and $1,000 shoes whispered behind their hands. Their message was clear: she had chosen their world, and in their world, I was nothing but a stain on the marble floor. I held the gift box tighter in my hands. Inside was a simple locket, a photo of Sophia at age 6 tucked inside, taken on the day she lost her first tooth. I had carried that picture in my wallet for 20 years, waiting for the day I could give it back to her as a reminder of where she came from. But standing in that ballroom, she didn't want memories. She wanted distance. "Sweetheart, It's your wedding day, I whispered, my voice already sounding smaller than I intended. I wanted to congratulate you both. My words fell flat, swallowed by the weight of her silence. Christopher's jaw flexed, his smile hardening. Money doesn't buy class, sir. He said it loud enough for nearby guests to hear, and a ripple of laughter spread through the crowd like wildfire. They tried to hide it behind their glasses, but I saw it. I felt it. The man who had benefited from every check I signed now mocked the very hands that wrote them. Sophia leaned toward me, her voice tight, embarrassed, desperate to contain the scene. This isn't about money, Dad. It's about fitting in. You don't understand the kind of people who are here. But I did understand. I understood perfectly. I was the construction worker who built the houses these men bragged about at cocktail parties. I was the one who stayed up late balancing payrolls so employees could feed their families. And now I was being told that sweat, loyalty, and sacrifice didn't belong among chandeliers and champagne. I paid for this wedding. Sophia, I said, my voice steady, factual, unshaken. Every flower, every plate, the dress you're wearing. Her face paled. Christopher's smile disappeared for a fraction of a second before snapping back into place. The crowd murmured louder whispers, thick with scandal. The father paying for everything but not welcome to stay. A family betrayal unfolding live in front of Spokane's elite. Sophia bit her lip, refusing to meet my eyes. Michael's right, she whispered, confusing her new husband's name with the father she was casting aside. Her slip made her flinch, but she didn't recover. Christopher's right. This isn't your place anymore. My legs felt heavy, my boots out of place against polished marble. 28 years of sacrifice erased in a single sentence. The chandelier above threw fractured light across her gown, making her look like a stranger dressed in shards of glass. Guests turned away, pretending interest in the string quartet still playing in the background, but their ears were sharp. They wanted to hear how far the daughter would go in rejecting her father. I set the gift box down on a nearby table between untouched champagne flutes and white orchids that I had paid for. My hand lingered for a moment, a farewell, not to the gift, but to the illusions I had carried for far too long. You're right, I said quietly. I don't belong here. The walk to the exit felt endless. Designer heels clicked behind me, sharp and confident. My boots, though polished, felt like lead. Whispers rose in waves, some mocking, some pitying, all cutting. Someone laughed, high-pitched and artificial, echoing off marble walls. In that moment, I understood what true exile felt like, not from a country, not from a society, but from my own blood. When I stepped out into the spring air, the laughter followed me like ghosts. The parking lot stretched wide, filled with gleaming luxury cars, status symbols, lined up like soldiers in parade. And there in the farthest corner sat my pickup truck, ordinary, battered, but honest. Out of place, yet more real than anything inside that ballroom. I gripped the keys in my hand, my heart burning with grief, humiliation, and something new rising beneath it. Not revenge, not spite. Something colder, something sharper. Justice. Because family betrayal cuts the deepest, and when your own daughter casts you aside for strangers in designer suits, there comes a moment when you stop begging to be included and you start showing the true cost of betrayal. As I turned toward the exit, the sound of crystal glasses clinking together rose behind me, almost as if the celebration had resumed, as if my humiliation were nothing more than a brief interruption. I paused for a second, watching from the edge of the ballroom, as Sophia slipped seamlessly back into the embrace of her new family. The Reynolds clan swarmed her, their smiles polished, their voices honeyed, their gestures theatrical. On the surface, it looked like love. But underneath, I could see the truth. It was all performance, all for show. Christopher's mother, Eleanor Reynolds, wrapped Sophia in a hug so staged it could have been rehearsed for theater. "Darling, you handled that perfectly," she whispered just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Her pearls glistened under the chandelier light, her perfume thick and sweet, masking the venom in her tone. Her eyes slid past Sophia's shoulder, landing on me with a flicker of disdain before she turned back, kissing Sophia's cheek. It was a kiss of ownership, not affection. Christopher's father, Richard Reynolds, patted Sophia's hand with mock tenderness. "Now let's not let unpleasant interruptions ruin our beautiful evening," he said. His voice carried the weight of boardrooms and country clubs, the kind of authority that dismisses people like me with a single glance. He raised his champagne glass, toasting to family, while deliberately turning his back toward where I stood. Their version of family had no room for men who built with calloused hands. Guests applauded politely, the string quartet adjusting their melody to drown out whispers. But even as the music swelled, I could still hear their private conversations. At least she married up. Poor girl, imagine being raised by someone like him. She's better off leaving that construction man behind. Their words stung, but worse than the sting was watching Sophia nod along, laughing at their jokes, leaning into their approval, as though my existence had always been an embarrassment. I wanted to believe she was trapped in the moment, that she felt pressured by the Reynolds name and their suffocating expectations. But her smile told another story. She glowed in their approval, her laughter chiming in harmony with theirs. Every gesture said the same thing: she had chosen them, not me. Christopher slipped his arm around her waist, pulling her close, like a trophy he'd just claimed. He kissed her temple as photographers snapped picture after picture. His words were syrupy but sharp. "See, darling, you're one of us now." Sophia's eyes softened at his praise, but when her gaze drifted back toward me, lingering near the door, it hardened again. She quickly turned away, allowing herself to be swept deeper into the Reynolds circle. That single glance was all the confirmation I needed. She wasn't ashamed of rejecting me. She was proud of it. The Reynolds family orchestrated every move, every embrace. They acted as though they had welcomed Sophia like their own blood, but I could see the subtle clues. Eleanor's grip on Sophia's arm was firm, possessive, like a leash. Richard's smile faltered every time my name was mentioned. Even Christopher's younger brother whispered to a friend, smirking as he muttered something about new money finally finding its place. They didn't see Sophia as one of them. They saw her as an accessory valuable only because of the spectacle, and my money had funded that spectacle. I stood there long enough to witness the photo session. The photographer gathered the family together: Christopher, his parents, his siblings, even distant cousins. Sophia stood in the center, radiant in her gown, and the father of the bride, the photographer, asked casually. For a moment, silence fell. Then Eleanor leaned in, her voice dripping with false warmth. "Oh, no need for that. Tonight is about the Reynolds family." Laughter bubbled around her like champagne fizz. Sophia didn't protest. She didn't even look for me. She simply smiled for the camera, letting the shutter capture the image of her new life, one that erased me completely. That was the moment I realized the betrayal wasn't just hers, it was theirs. They had cloaked her in silk and pearls, offered her champagne and applause, but beneath it all, they made sure she understood the cost to belong to them. She had to sever ties with me, and she accepted the bargain. The applause grew louder, glasses raised in another toast. I slipped outside into the night air, the echoes of their laughter chasing me. To them, I was gone already. But as I gripped the handle of my pickup truck, my heart hardened. They thought they had erased me with their staged affection and polished cruelty. They were wrong, because what they saw as weakness was the very thing that would turn this wedding disaster into a justice story people would never forget. Family betrayal doesn't always come in screams or slaps. Sometimes it comes in soft hugs, fake smiles, and champagne toasts. And sometimes the cruelest rejection is not being shouted at, but being written out of the picture entirely. When I stepped outside into the chill of the spring evening, the air smelled of damp earth and expensive perfume leaking from the ballroom doors. My boots hit the asphalt, heavy with humiliation, but even heavier with memory. Because when betrayal hits you this hard, your mind doesn't just stay in the present, it drags you back through every sacrifice that led you here. I saw her as a toddler again, Sophia at 3 years old, standing in the kitchen, in footed pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit, asking where mommy was. Sarah had been gone only a month, cancer stealing her from us in 6 brutal months, and I had no answers, only arms to hold my little girl tight. I promised her then that she would never feel alone, that I would give her the world. I had no idea that promise would cost me nearly $1 million, and apparently my place at her wedding. Every dollar was a brick in the foundation of her life. Riverside Academy tuition, $12,000 a year by the time she graduated. I wrote those checks without blinking, even when it meant delaying payroll for my construction company. I told myself education is the best investment. And when she hugged me after her first spelling bee win, grinning with the gap in her teeth, I believed it was worth every cent. Then came the cars. 16 years old, she begged me for something safe, so I bought her a Honda Civic for $18,000. Within months, she said it was embarrassing. By 19, she had a BMW, then another, at 25, to match the lifestyle of Christopher's friends. Insurance, maintenance, registration, my money covered it all. She never had to think about the cost because I absorbed every consequence. Northwestern University nearly broke me. $52,000 a year for tuition, $15,000 for room and board, plus the extras, sorority dues, Cancun spring breaks, Italy study abroad. Each semester felt like a down payment on someone else's mansion. But when Sophia called and said, "Dad, I need $3,000 for a fraternity networking trip," I wired it the same day. Not because I had it to spare, but because I couldn't bear to say no. Post-college, she lived in a Lincoln Park apartment at $2,800 a month. I covered it for 3 years while also handling her credit card overages, designer clothing, spa treatments, weekend trips. She texted me like it was routine: "Dad, I need rent covered, thanks." No questions about how I was doing, no thanks, just expectation. What started as love had been twisted into obligation. The numbers haunt me. Education, $410,000. Transportation, $75,000. Housing, $125,000. Personal expenses, $180,000. The wedding, nearly $150,000. The total, $937,000. Almost a million. A million I would have spent again without hesitation if it had bought love. But standing in that ballroom watching her erase me with a single sentence, I realized it had bought me nothing but silence. And yet the money was only part of it. The real cost was my time, my heart. Every bedtime story I read, even when I was bone-tired from pouring concrete all day. Every science project I helped build cutting plywood in the garage at midnight. Every recital I drove to in my work boots clapping louder than anyone else. I gave her all of me, my hands, my back, my heart, and in return, I became invisible. As I sat in my truck staring at the dashboard clock, the weight of 25 years pressed down on me. I thought of the way Sophia used to curl up against me in pink pajamas, whispering, "Daddy, will you read one more?" I thought of the smile she gave me when I told her I paid her first-year tuition, the way she kissed my cheek after her Sweet 16 party. I thought of how those moments slowly faded, replaced by demands, transactions, deadlines. She had stopped calling me Dad with love in her voice and started calling me Dad the way someone calls customer service. Somewhere along the way, my greatest joy had turned me into her greatest convenience. My chest burned with grief, but beneath the grief, something else began to form. Clarity, resolve. The Reynolds family thought they had erased me tonight. Sophia thought I would swallow my humiliation quietly, the way I had swallowed every bill, every demand, every slight. But they had forgotten something. When a man has sacrificed everything, he has nothing left to lose, and nothing is more dangerous than that. I turned the key in the ignition, the truck engine humming like an old friend. I looked back at the glowing windows of the ballroom, at the silhouettes of people who believed money made them untouchable, and I realized something simple, something brutal. The true price of betrayal is not just financial, it's emotional. And when the bill comes due, it's not revenge to collect it. It's justice. I sat behind the wheel of my pickup truck, the cab smelling faintly of sawdust and coffee, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly the leather creaked. The ballroom's stained glass windows glowed behind me, filled with the shadows of people who had just erased me from my own daughter's wedding. My chest rose and fell, each breath sharper than the last. For 25 years, I had solved every problem Sophia threw at me with money. Tonight, money would solve this one too, but not the way she expected. The dashboard clock read 3:47 p.m. Banks would close in just over an hour. That gave me time to reclaim control time, to make sure the world saw the real price of betrayal. I scrolled through my phone contacts until I found the number I hadn't dialed in months: First National Bank Business Services. My thumb hovered for 3 seconds before I pressed call. The line rang once. "First National, this is Linda Cooper speaking. How may I assist you, Linda? This is David Miller. Account number 77512. I need to initiate stop payments on several authorized transactions immediately." My voice was calm, professional. Years of running Clark Construction had trained me to sound steady, even when everything inside me boiled. "Of course, Mr. Miller, let me pull up your account. Can you verify your social security number and mother's maiden name?" she asked. I rattled them off from memory, my eyes still fixed on the venue doors where guests laughed and clinked glasses. "Thank you. I see several large transactions from today. Which ones, specifically all wedding-related payments? I said flatly. Venue rental catering deposit, floral arrangements, photography music services, everything tied to the Miller Reynolds wedding. Silence hummed on the line. Sir, these are significant amounts. Are you certain, completely certain? Circumstances have changed. Keyboard clicks echoed in my ear. I'll need authorization codes for anything over 10,000. I spoke each code from memory, every number carved into my brain after decades of contracts and invoices. Within minutes, Linda confirmed stop payments are now in effect. Confirmation numbers are being generated. Send them to my email. Thank you, Linda. I hung up, my pulse steady now. One domino had fallen. It was time for the rest. I dialed the next number. Elegant Affairs Catering, this is Daniel Foster. Daniel, this is David Miller. I'm calling about the Reynolds wedding happening right now. Oh yes, Mr. Miller, everything's going beautifully. Guests are raving about the appetizers. There's been a financial complication, I said. Payment authorization has been revoked. You'll want to protect your equipment and remaining food service. Silence stretched. Then his voice cracked. I'm sorry, what exactly are you saying? The bank has stopped payment on your contract, effective immediately. I suggest you secure your assets. But we're in the middle of service. The main course hasn't even been served. That's unfortunate timing. You may want to discuss alternative payment arrangements with the wedding party. My tone stayed professional, detached, almost surgical. This wasn't revenge. This was an audit. Daniel disconnected without another word. I pictured him rushing to his staff, panic spreading across the kitchen. Another domino toppled. Next call, Bellingham Blooms. This is Karen Blake. Karen, this is David Miller regarding the Reynolds wedding flowers. Oh yes, Mr. Miller, the arrangements look stunning. The bride was so pleased with the orchids. There's been a payment issue. Bank authorization has been canceled. You'll need to collect your arrangements if you want to salvage any value. Collect them, but they're integrated into the entire venue design. Business is business, Karen. I suggest you move quickly. Her silence was heavier than words. I could almost hear the sound of orchids being dismantled already. I made 3 more calls, photography, the string quartet, even the linen rental company. Each conversation followed the same rhythm, professional courtesy, growing alarm, abrupt disconnection. By 4:15 p.m., it was done. Through my windshield, I watched a white catering van pull up to the venue's side entrance. Daniel Foster, no doubt, coming to salvage what he could. I leaned back in my seat, exhaling for the first time since Sophia had told me to leave. The weight pressing on my chest began to lift. For the first time all day, I wasn't powerless. They thought they could humiliate me and continue celebrating on my dime. Tonight, they would learn that betrayal has consequences. I tapped my phone screen again. Missed calls from Sophia, already blinked her name, glowing like a beacon of desperation. I didn't answer. Not yet. Not until she felt the full impact of what she had done. In that moment, sitting alone in my pickup truck, I realized something simple but profound. Money had been the chain they used to control me. Now it would be the weapon I used to free myself. This wasn't a revenge story, it was a justice story. And justice was about to march straight into that ballroom, invoice by invoice, vendor by vendor, until the truth could no longer be ignored. From the cab of my truck, I watched the first sign of collapse unfold. A white catering van screeched to a halt by the service entrance, and Daniel Foster jumped out, clipboard in hand, his staff scrambling behind him. They weren't carrying trays of food anymore. They carried empty bins, containers, and rolls of protective cloth. I could see them storm through the side doors like a rescue team, but they weren't there to save the wedding. They were there to save themselves. Inside the ballroom, guests still clinked their champagne glasses, oblivious. But soon whispers began to spread as the catering team started covering the buffet tables in white sheets, lifting half-carved roasts, whisking away trays of appetizers. The music faltered, glasses paused mid-air, forks clattered against porcelain. Spokane's elite turned in confusion, realizing something was terribly wrong. Then came Karen Blake and her crew, pushing carts stacked with plastic containers. The orchids that Sophia had bragged about for weeks, flown in at impossible expense, began disappearing stem by stem. The towering altar arrangement was dismantled before everyone's eyes. Karen herself stood at the center, professionally detached, reciting the same words I had heard minutes before. Payment authorization has been revoked. We are contractually obligated to recover our property. Sophia rushed forward, her gown sweeping across the marble, her voice rising in panic. Wait, what are you doing? This is my wedding. Karen's assistant handed her a clipboard. Ma'am, without payment, these arrangements are no longer yours. Gasps echoed across the ballroom. Guests turned to each other, murmuring family betrayal under their breath. Phones already snapping pictures. The wedding disaster was going viral in real time. Christopher stormed toward the vendors, his face flushed with anger. This is unacceptable. Do you know who I am? His voice cracked, more desperate than commanding. Daniel Foster didn't flinch. Sir, we know exactly who authorized this event, and that authorization has been withdrawn. In that moment, every eye in the ballroom turned toward Sophia. The bride who had dismissed her father hours earlier now stood exposed, her perfect image crumbling in front of Spokane's high society. The music died completely when the string quartet began packing their instruments. One moment, violins floated in the air. The next moment, silence crashed like a wave. The sound system was unplugged microphones. Muted lights dimmed as technicians rolled up cables. A celebration had transformed into a crime scene of contracts. Sophia clutched Christopher's arm, her voice breaking. Dad wouldn't. He couldn't. But even she didn't sound convinced. The room buzzed with judgment, every guest hungry for drama. Did you hear he paid for everything? And now he's taking it back. I've never seen anything like this. What a revenge story. No, not revenge, one man muttered, holding up his phone to record. This is a justice story. I sat in my truck watching it all through the windows, my phone buzzing nonstop with her desperate calls. I didn't answer. Not yet. Justice had to finish its walk through the ballroom before I spoke. By the next morning, whispers had become headlines. Social media flooded with shaky videos of florists stripping orchids, caterers, hauling food, bridesmaids frozen in shock. Hashtags trended: Shark's family betrayal, Jakshan wedding disaster, Jashan father v's daughter. People around Spokane couldn't stop talking about it. But I wasn't finished, because humiliation in a ballroom wasn't enough to make Sophia understand the true cost of betrayal. That Monday, I sat across from attorney Helen Parker in her mahogany-paneled office. I handed her 25 years of meticulously kept records, tuition checks, car payments, housing contracts, credit card statements, every receipt cataloged. $937,000 documented to the penny. Helen flipped through the folders, her pen tapping against legal pads. Mr. Miller, this is extraordinary documentation. We can reclassify these as loans, issue a demand letter, and if necessary, proceed with civil recovery. Your daughter will have 30 days to respond. 30 days. A month to repay nearly $1 million or face legal action. The numbers weren't just numbers anymore. They were evidence. Proof that love had been given as sacrifice, not entitlement. Proof that what Sophia and Christopher called support was in fact a debt. By Tuesday morning, the package was on its way to the Spokane Grand Hotel where the newlyweds were staying. Signed for at the front desk by Sophia herself. I imagined her tearing the envelope open, expecting vendor paperwork, only to find a formal demand for $937,000 in repayment, complete with bank statements and supporting documentation. Her phone calls tripled that afternoon, each voicemail more frantic than the last. Dad, this can't be real. Please, they're saying you're suing us. Michael's family's asking questions I can't answer. I didn't respond, because the truth had already been spoken, not in words but in actions. Vendors reclaiming their property, bank records laid bare, contracts turned against her. The world now saw Sophia not as a glowing bride, but as the daughter who cast her father aside and lost everything in return. And for the first time in 25 years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt justified. The fallout came faster than even I imagined. When you tear the mask off a family built on appearances, the collapse isn't gradual, it's instant, brutal, and public. Within 3 days of the wedding disaster, the Reynolds family, who had once draped Sophia in pearls and champagne toasts, quietly cut her out of their circle. The hugs, the staged kisses, the promises of family vanished like smoke. I heard about it not from Sophia, but from whispers across Spokane. Eleanor Reynolds, who just days earlier had called Sophia her darling daughter, was overheard at the country club saying, We had no idea the girl came with so much baggage. This scandal has tainted the family name. Richard Reynolds, Christopher's father, stopped returning Sophia's calls altogether. To the Reynolds family, she was no longer a trophy bride. She was a liability. But the final blow came from Christopher himself. It was Wednesday morning, less than a week after the ceremony, when my phone buzzed with a tip from an old friend who worked at the Grand Hotel. He had seen Christopher packing his suitcase in the lobby, jaw clenched, ignoring Sophia's desperate pleas. Later, I heard the details from Sophia's own voicemail, her voice cracked and broken. "Daddy's gone. Christopher left me. He said he can't risk his reputation. He said, I'm a financial disaster." The man she had chosen over her own father had abandoned her in less than 6 days. His words were merciless. He told her he needed to protect his trust fund, his business prospects, his family standing, and he told her bluntly, "You've brought me into a financial nightmare. I can't be tied to you." Then he left her standing in that hotel room, still wearing the remnants of her bridal glow, now stripped bare by humiliation. Sophia tried to hold on. She reached out to friends, the same ones who had enjoyed her generosity for years, the Cancun trips, the designer shopping sprees, the lavish dinners I unknowingly funded. But when she called them, the responses were cold. "I'm so sorry, Sophia, but this is a lot right now. Maybe you should talk to your family about it. I can't get involved in something like this." The sorority sisters who had once toasted with her on rooftops stopped answering. Her college roommate blocked her number. Even distant relatives whispered that perhaps Sophia had gone too far. Reputation is currency in a town like Spokane, and Sophia had bankrupted hers overnight. Videos of the vendors stripping her wedding trended online under hashtags like Jean-Marie wedding disaster and family betrayal. Clips of her pleading with Karen Blake, begging the florist not to take the orchids, were shared thousands of times with captions like, "Money doesn't buy love." The comments were ruthless. Entitled, "Bride gets what she deserves." Imagine disowning your father at your wedding, and then this happens. The Reynolds family, desperate to salvage their own reputation, began spinning the story. They claimed Christopher had been misled, that he hadn't known the extent of Sophia's financial dependencies. They painted her as unstable, reckless, deceitful, and Sophia, stripped of her allies, had no way to fight back. She called me repeatedly, her messages a mixture of anger and despair. One moment she screamed, "How could you do this to me?" The next she sobbed, "Please, Dad, everyone's turning against me. I need you." But I didn't answer. Not yet, because this wasn't about punishing her. It was about letting her feel the weight of consequences she had never faced. For 28 years, I had cushioned her from failure, absorbing every blow so she could live in comfort. Now, for the first time, she was standing alone, and the world was showing her no mercy. By Friday, the story reached the Spokane Business Journal. Headlines read, "Wedding disaster turns into family financial feud." Photos of me at job sites, hard hat on, standing with my crew, ran alongside images of Sophia in her gown, her face frozen in shock as flowers were stripped from tables. The contrast was too stark for the public to ignore a father who sacrificed everything versus a daughter who threw him aside. Christopher's departure sealed her fate. His family issued a statement distancing themselves from ongoing personal disputes. In plain words, Sophia was cut off. No financial backing, no social standing, no marriage. She had lost everything she thought she had gained by rejecting me. In less than a week, the girl who believed she had traded up was left with nothing but silence. No husband, no Reynolds family, no friends willing to pick up the phone. Her once perfect life had collapsed like a house of cards built on lies. And I, sitting at my kitchen table with stacks of financial records beside me, felt no triumph, only clarity. This wasn't revenge. This was reality finally catching up to her. The family that had pretended to love her for appearances abandoned her the moment those appearances cracked. The husband she chose over her father left the second his reputation was threatened. And the friends who drank her champagne and wore her designer gifts evaporated when she had nothing left to give. Sophia had wanted to erase me from her wedding, but instead she had erased herself from her entire world. The calls started as angry voicemails, Sophia's voice sharp with indignation. "Dad, what have you done? You've destroyed everything. I let them pile up unheard." By the next day, anger gave way to panic. "Dad, the vendors are demanding payment. Christopher's family is furious. Please pick up. Still, I stayed silent, because for the first time in her life, Sophia had to face consequences without me rushing in to fix them. But then her tone changed. By Sunday night, her voice cracked raw, desperate. Dad, I don't know what to do. Everyone's gone. Christopher left me. His family won't even take my calls. My friends, they won't help. I need you. Please, I need you. The tremor in her voice cut through me more than the cruelty of the wedding rejection ever had. I listened in the dark, my hand hovering over the phone, my heart at war with itself. On Monday morning, the silence from her became unbearable. Then just before noon, my phone lit up again with her name. This time I answered. Hello, Sophia. The pause on the other end was long, heavy. Then came a broken whisper. Dad. She didn't sound like the woman in the wedding gown. She sounded like the little girl in pink pajamas who used to curl up against me after her mother died. Her words came out halting like stones she had to cough up. I don't know where to start. I lost everything. Christopher's gone. His parents won't speak to me. I don't even have money for tonight's hotel bill. Everyone hates me. Everyone's saying terrible things online. I don't know what to do. She sobbed openly, no longer the polished bride, no longer the entitled daughter, just human fragile. I let the silence stretch before asking, do you understand why this happened, Sophia? She hesitated, then her voice broke again. Because I treated you like a bank account instead of a person. Because I never appreciated what you sacrificed. Because I was selfish and cruel. Each confession was like a wound reopening, but also like poison draining out. I saw the financial records you posted, $937,000. I never asked where it came from. I never thanked you. And then I told you to leave your own daughter's wedding. Dad, I betrayed you. Hearing those words, I closed my eyes, fighting the sting behind them. For years, I had prayed she would see it even once, and now stripped of everything, she finally did. Go on, I said softly. Her voice trembled. I tried to destroy your reputation when you stood up to me. I lied about you online. I let Christopher's family spread rumors. I became everything wrong with spoiled children who never grow up. And now, I don't have anyone left. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging you for a chance. I want to change. I want to learn to be someone you can respect, not just someone you feel obligated to save. The silence in my kitchen was thick. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock on the wall. My hands shook as I gripped the phone tighter. I thought of Sarah gone too soon, and the promise I made to raise Sophia into someone kind, someone grateful. I thought of the bedtime stories, the recitals, the cars, the tuition bills, and I thought of her turning me away in front of 100 people. Sophia, I said, my voice steady, if I help you this time, there will be conditions. Anything, she whispered. You'll find employment within 2 weeks. I don't care if it's cleaning offices or waiting tables. Pride is a luxury you can't afford anymore. I understand. No financial requests for 6 months. You live on what you earn. Yes, I will. And we'll talk once a week, but not as a dependent child asking for money. As two adults. Do you understand I want that, Dad? I want to earn the right to be your daughter again. My throat tightened. I'll transfer $1,000 to your account. That covers this hotel for a week and basic groceries. After that, you're on your own. She sobbed again, but this time with gratitude. Thank you, Dad. I know I don't deserve it. You're right, you don't deserve it. But everyone deserves one chance to grow up even at 28. The call ended, and I sat staring at the quiet phone in my hand. For the first time in years, I felt something other than resentment or exhaustion. Not relief, exactly something harder to name. Possibility. Sophia had finally asked not for money but for respect. This wasn't the end of the family betrayal. This was the beginning of something new, the first fragile step toward redemption. I wired Sophia the $1,000 the last time money would ever pass between us, without conditions. Not as a gift, not as a blank check, but as a lifeline with rules attached. I told her clearly, a week of shelter, a week of food, nothing more. For the first time in her 28 years, survival was in her own hands. The next morning she sent me a photo. No makeup, her hair pulled back, dressed in a plain blouse instead of designer silk. She was holding a folder of resumes standing outside a diner downtown, with a handwritten sign taped to the window. now hiring servers. For the first time, she looked nervous, but also real. Not the bride in a gown, not the girl on a spring break trip, not the daughter shielded by endless checks. Just Sophia finally facing life on her own terms. She called me that night. Dad, I filled out 5 applications today. It was harder than I thought. I could hear the exhaustion in her voice, but also something new, determination. I didn't congratulate her. I didn't send her more money. I simply said, good, that's how you start. In my heart, I knew redemption wouldn't come in a week or even in 6 months. It would take years to rebuild what she had broken if it could be rebuilt at all. But for the first time in decades, I saw a spark of possibility. She had been stripped of everything false, and what remained was fragile honesty. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to learn the value of anything. To those watching, wondering whether I regret what I did, the answer is simple. This was never revenge. This was justice. Justice for the father who sacrificed everything. Justice for the child who had to learn that love without respect is nothing but dependency. And maybe, just maybe, justice is what allowed love to have a chance at survival. If you've ever felt the sting of family betrayal, if you've ever wondered whether standing your ground would cost you love, remember this story. Sometimes setting boundaries isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of respect. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose justice over blind loyalty? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Don't forget to like this video, save it if it spoke to you, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next justice story. Because the most powerful lessons in life don't just come from victory, they come from survival.